Yo, what's going on, GameLeapers? Hope you're all raring to go for a wicked Christmas. I'm Coach Cheese, and in this video, we're going to be covering the 20 worst champions in the upcoming patch 1025B. Now, Riot are doing me dirty at the moment because they promised this patch was going to drop a couple of days ago, but rest assured it will be live very soon. So if you want to be as prepared as you can possibly be for it, make sure to watch this video. Now, as we all know, the new mythic and legendary items are pretty much League of Legends at the moment. If your champion works well with them, great. If your champion sucks with them, then it's going to be a rough ride, and that's what we are focusing on today. Those champions that underperform with the new installments. Now, I know some people can get upset by videos like these, but my intention is to bring light to how bad these champions are to better inform you on who to put time into for Season 11, and you never know. Like, maybe someone from Riot comes across this video and helps these champions out, which would be great. And that leads me into our question of the video. What champion do you think needs the most help before Season 11? What champion is so bad that you have to let us know in the comments about? Now, before we get into it, gang, friendly reminder as well that we have a massive $50 sale on at our awesome website GameLeap.com. Now, if you're struggling to climb and find improvement on the Rift, then do yourself a massive favor. Join thousands of others and get signed up right now. Links in the description and comment section. Alright, let's get into it. Starting us off, the 20th worst champion of 1025B is Caitlyn. Now, this preseason has unfortunately been incredibly unkind to AD carries, and Caitlyn is one of many on this list. So the crit changes before the preseason began are still in the game. So items offer a maximum of 20% crit, and the crits themselves only do 175% base damage. So what this means is you need an extra item to reach 100% crit, and even when you do get to that point, you are not hitting as hard. Essentially, if you rely on critical strike chance like Caitlyn does with her passive, then you are way behind in this meta, and it sucks, it really does. Now, coming in at number 19, we have Silas. Now, Silas was doing okay at the start of the preseason, but what really hurt you was the nerf to Hextech Rocket Belt. So since 1024, Silas has been struggling to compete with other mages whose items like Luden's Tempest and Everfrost have been getting buffed, and more players are familiar with the 800 gold anti-healing items that really throw a spanner in the works. It negates your healing from your W and Conqueror, so in those skirmishes where you're meant to be the biggest terror going around, you are a shadow of your former self. Now, as a jungler, Silas has fallen to the wayside, and in every elo has a subpar 47-48% win rate. You will still do well into compositions with AP heavy ultimates, and I'd suggest only picking Silas into them, but there are certainly better mages on the cards. The 18th spot on our countdown is held by Soraka. Now, I love a banana with my porridge in the morning, but hey, in 1025B, Soraka is just not on the menu. And it's not that she's a terrible champion, it's just that the meta is really unfavorable. I mean, if you're playing Soraka, all the enemy team has to do, right, is spend 800 gold on a Grievous wind item like they have to do for Silas, and your game is over. And let me put it to you this way. 5 other spellcasting supports like you are in the top 20 win rates. 5 of them. Now, Soraka's win rate is in the bottom 20, so that just goes to show. Not only do you struggle in the league landscape at the moment, there are plenty of other champions who can do your job, but better. Now then, number 17 on our list, we have Vladimir. Though not as bad as the other mid-to-night countdown, Vladimir was hit by the 1023 and 1024 changes and is outclassed by a lot of the other mages. So your early game as Vlad has always been a weak point, we know that, and cooldown reduction was your way out via Kindle Gem and Proto Belt. Now the thing is, the new Rocket Belt doesn't build out a Kindle Gem, so you don't get the CDR until you spend 3200 gold, and you only get 15 of it. Now what this means is you are forced to wait even longer for your power spikes. We've already talked about the 800 gold anti-healing items. These act as another roadblock to your scaling, and to cap it all off, in early game skirmishes you are straight up useless, and these really matter this season. Your long cooldowns and lack of CC almost force you to play like an assassin instead of a battle mage. Alright guys, moving on, firing her way into number 16, we have Jinx, and our second ADC on this list. Now Jinx's win rate is actually decent for the most part. You know, I think most people, especially those of you who play the other champions on this list, would take a 49% win rate. But unless you're a Jinx master, you are going to struggle getting Ws on this champion. The critical strike changes, as we discussed with Caitlyn, are a big punch in the gut for Jinx as well. The fact that your Mythic, Runaan's Hurricane, and Infinity Age cost over 10,000 gold is, well, just unfair to be honest. Like, how often are you going to get to this point? In fact, let me know in the comments, out of 10 games, let's say, how many of you playing Jinx are hitting this 3-item spike? Now, what also sucks is the first 15 to 20 minutes of a game, and yes, the early game has always been your weak point, but this meta is all about that mythic item power spike, and every champion you run into can one-shot you, and what do you have to stop them? Like, that silver support you have who doesn't know what day it is isn't going to stop them, and a flash you have on a 5-minute cooldown isn't going to either. So it's very hard to play Jinx and do well, but when Renans gets changed in 11.1, which is just around the corner really, hopefully it becomes easier. Now guys, we have another ADC coming in at number 15, and this time it's Sivir. Now you know it's not looking good for you when the Sivir subreddit is talking about Duskblade Sivir being good. Now maybe that's me being ignorant, you'll have to let me know, but anything you build on Sivir is going to be bad just because you can't compete with everything that's good in the game at the moment. Yeah, the crit changes again hurt all the ADCs and Sivir in particular because your ricochet scales with crit, and you have to rely on your support and teammates to get your 3-item spike, and let's be real, who on earth can count on their teammates? Moving on, Flame spitting his way in at number 14, it's a Rumble. Now, Rumble was one of those champions that did okay at the start of the preseason. You know, you had Riftmaker as a mythic, you had Night Harvester, Rocket Belt, you could build all three of these and they were legit. But since the 1024 nerfs for all of these items, Rumble has been unsurprisingly on the decline. Top lane is just a no-go because you get dumpstered by every bruiser and you're very easy to kill, and the same goes for mid. You may be oppressive into some champions early game, but when every player has their mythic item at the ready, you pale in comparison and literally become just a big bit of junk. Okay, number 13, realm warping his way into this spot is Ryze. Now, if you want to save yourself from molding this patch, do not go near the Rune Mage. Ryze is one of the worst mid champions in the game, not necessarily because he's a bad champion, kind of like Soraka, but because he gets outclassed by everything that's OP at the moment. So think of all the high damage mid laners you see like Akali, Fizz, Zed, LeBlanc. Your lack of mobility is a huge disadvantage. Now, as the game progresses, you also run into trouble against heavy crowd control, Leona and Nautilus, and high-range champions, so Jhin and Misfortune. We all know that as Ryze, you rely on mana like humans do food, and you burn through the calories, let's be honest. And what makes matters worse is that the current mana items and options are, well, terrible, let alone scarce. Rod of Ages was removed from the game, Tear of the Goddess no longer grants mana regen, and in solo queue, like how many of your junglers are going to give you blue buff? None of them, right? So unless you're faker, forget Ryze even exists. Now coming in at number 12, we have Gangplank. Now Gangplank would be a lot higher on this list, but in 1025B, you pirates are receiving a massive buff. An extra 1 AD per level. Now this is pretty penile, as unfortunately trolling, but it does help you out a little bit. So the AD is important for your Q&E and also gets put into Sheen, which is still an essential item. The problem is that it's not nearly enough. So another issue for you GP mains is that Sheen may cost 350 gold less than its older version, but it no longer gives mana and cooldown reduction. The Spellblade passive still procs on your Q of course, but that is all you get. You can no longer spam Qs and non-stop harass your opponent in lane because you will be owned before you know it, and your laning phase is a constant battle with your blue bar instead of with your opponent. Now because of the changes to Sheen, Trinity Force now suffers from the same problems, and as a result, you don't really have an optimal mythic item. The fact of the matter, unfortunately, is that whatever mythic you choose, there are 10 more champions that make better use of it. Okay guys, here we are at number 11, and it's Karma. Now Karma top is kind of trash because your Q has been nerfed 100 times, Karma mid is kind of trash for the same reason, and Karma support is just, well, meh. Like Soraka, why not just pick Nami or Janna or Seraphine if you want to win? Now good news is just around the corner because Karma is getting buffed in 11.1, but until then GameLeap has no reason to stress yourselves out over Christmas and New Year's, so yeah, just pick another spellcasting support. Alright, it's top 10 time, who is pumped? Now kicking off the final 10 is Varus. Now the underlying reason why Varus is just straight up bad this patch is because there is no build that lets you compete with a top marksman in the game. Though you have many options, none of these compare to a Jhin with lethality or a Vayne with a mythic and a 2500 gold Phantom Dancer. So if you want to go lethality Varus, you can just pick Jhin or Misfortune and do the same job but better. If you want to go on hit Varus with a Ginsu's and Runar's Hurricane, you can just pick Vayne or Kai'Sa. And if you really wanted to test the patience of you and your teammates, you could go AP Varus with a Nash's Tooth, but yeah, just don't. It takes an eternity to come online, by which time you're getting reported anyway. Thankfully, the mirror mana change hasn't affected Varus from 1025, and if you were to go Duskblade and mirror mana, you can actually still do fine, but that's it. Just fine. You are still very killable for every meta champion, and you have to rely on your support in the early game to help you through it. Moving on to the 9th spot, and this is held by Dr. Mundo. Now I know what you're thinking, Mundo is a Sunfire Aegis abuser, how can he be bad? Well, Sunfire Aegis has been nerfed that many times already, it's copping another nerf in 1025B, so not only is your clear weaker, but also your dueling. Now the health cost on each of your abilities is a real downside as well. Other tank junglers like Nunu, Rammus, and Sejuani can do exactly the same thing, but are healthy enough to stay on the map and contest the enemy jungler. Now one of your biggest strengths, health regeneration, is also countered in this meta by 3 800 gold items that we've already talked about that apply grievous wounds. Your level 6 is weaker as a result, and again, compared to other champions, you are a lot less useful. Now, I know that I'm going to cop some flack for this next pick, but I want you guys, if you think I'm wrong, to tell me in the comments. Now, our number 8 pick is Malphite. So in 1025, hear me out, Malphite has a top 20 win rate. So what am I? Am I high or what? I just hate rocks? Well, I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm reading the 1025B changes. Sunfire Aegis is getting nerfed again if it hasn't been nerfed enough already, and Malphite's base magic resist is down by over 4. Now, this is the question I have. How are you going to cope with any AP top laners from now on? Like, you already get dumpstered by Teemo, Mordecai, Zakale, they have a free lane, and all these scale into late game beasts. So how are you going to stop them on Malphite? So in at number 7, we have another AD carry, and this time it is Xayah. Now in lane, you are incredibly weak early on, right? Your cooldowns are long, you run out of mana quicker than meta ADCs like Jhin and Misfortune, and you are immobile. Think of Alistair, Leona, Rel. These meatheads can easily force their way onto you, as can the meta mid laners and junglers, and if you're not level 6, one combo is enough to send you packing. I mean, let's just think about your ultimate for a second. It's on a 160-second cooldown at 1 rank, which is nuts. Like, how are you meant to survive in this meta with that? You also get outranged by a lot of the strong ADCs at the moment, so if you think of Jhin, Draven, MF, even Ashe, and this means you get harassed easily and have no priority in lane. Alright guys, coming in at number 6, we have Tahm Kench. Now the only thing Kenshi Wenshi has going for him is that he's hard to look at if you're an opponent, right? He's not exactly pleasing on the eye, is he? Now Kench has always been a great pick in higher elo, especially in pro play, and after a series of nerfs over the years has fallen off dramatically in solo queue. Now in this meta, you might think you could play Tahm and do well because you can peel for your carries as well as anyone by eating them, but there's so much damage in the game, you're easy as ever to kill, and you can only protect one of your teammates and for not long enough. Now if you really wanted to peel your teammates, you could just pick Leona or Nautilus instead. This is it. Guys, the top 5. The 5th worst champion at 1025B is Ezreal. Now, you'll want to listen to this regardless of how much it hurts, so after the mirror mana change where the shock damage only procs on physical abilities, Ezreal has plummeted because only your Q can apply this extra damage, meaning you're in quite the pickle. Do you still build tier early on so you don't run in lane and fights, or do you risk running pretty much non-stop by building straight up damage? Now, 47% win rate is obviously terrible, but here's the thing. An 11.1 Riot are allegedly reverting this mirror mana effect so that it procs on all abilities. So guys, grit your teeth through 1025B because it will get better, but yeah, you're still terrible for the next couple of weeks. The 4th worst champion at 1025B is Corki. Now, unless you have a moustache fetish, just don't, because Corki is one of the worst mid laners in the entire game. So the mirror mana change again from 1025 is probably the biggest low blow in league history to Corki, and as we just talked about to Ezreal as well. You have gone from proccing the shock damage on everything to only being able to proc it on your Gatling gun, and this ability, let's be honest, it's like a wet paper bag. It's not doing anything. Now, in high elo career, the Bombardier holds a 33% win rate because of this, and this will not change. On top of that, none of the mythics come close to giving you the power you had with the old Trinity Force, so even after spending upwards of 3,000 gold on one of these items, you're as useless as ever. Now, the 3 worst champions of 1025B, here we go guys. Number 3 is Aphelios. Can you remember when Aphelios came out and you would one-shot anyone that came close to you? Well, this feels like so long ago. Like every other AD carry, the crit changes have destroyed the weapon of the faithful, and it's actually more severe for Aphelios because your abilities scale off crit. Your late game is meant to be insane and still actually really good. Well, good luck getting to that point this patch. You are easily exploitable in the laning phase because of your lack of damage and no escape, and this is especially apparent in this meta because everyone has damage to kill you. In addition, your final build is also very expensive, so Kraken Slayer, Runeart's Hurricane, even Infinity Edge, these are all 3,400 gold, and as we just mentioned, how are you meant to reach that spike without being 0-10? Alright guys, the 2nd worst champion at 1025B is Amumu, and who would have thought I would be saying this a month or so ago? Now, the Sad Mummy has gone from the most broken champion in the preseason to arguably the worst champion in just a few patches, and 1025B will bring in even more tiers. Now, I understand Amumu might still be annoying to play against in low elo, and who isn't, by the way, let's be real, but after huge nerfs in 1023, 1024, and the 1024 hot fix, Amumu has a 44% win rate in high elo, one of the worst in the game. Now, 1025B Sunfire Aegis is getting hit again, and this will indirectly jab Amumu, so if you want a tank to play over the holidays, stay away from the green bandage tosser. Before we reveal the worst champion in the game for 1025B, guys, massive thanks for watching the video, and remember to check out our website before closing your browser. $50 off memberships at GameLeap.com, so get your heads on over there before this red hot offer ends. Now, this champion has the lowest win rate out of them all, and I want to see if you guys can guess who it is from the following clues. So the first clue, this champion used to rush Nash's Tooth, but it no longer offers cooldown reduction and isn't worth rushing in this meta. The second clue, none of the mythics really make you pop off. There are so many other champions that make better use of them. The third clue, Shurima. And the fourth and final clue, if you couldn't get it off my amazing impersonation, is that it takes way too long to come online, especially against popular mid laners who can unleash their power after one item. Now, to those of you who guessed Azir, hey, congratulations. Let me know in the comments how many clues it took you to get it right. So Azir is officially our worst champion at 1025B. Once again, guys, thanks so much for watching. Like the video and subscribe and turn on all notifications. This has been Coach Eagles, and until next time, peace.